Chair recognizes Mr. Moran.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you to all of you that are here today. I am devastated by the testimony and the stories that we're hearing. And I'll just tell you, from my perspective, the foreign policy, the national defense policy, and the homeland security policy of the U.S. must clearly be strong, steady, and strategic. Our policies and practices must adhere to these principles. Otherwise, our allies will not trust us, our foes will not fear us, and neither will respect us. Without such policies and practices, and without the resulting trust and respect that comes with them, our country's practical ability to lead in this world collapses alongside its broken principles. America will no longer be able to claim the moral high ground, and foreign allies will no longer be able to trust that we will stand with them in those critical times. Additionally, I'm convinced that it will incentivize our foes to become more aggressive, and it will disincentivize anyone from partnering with us. Both are devastating to this nation and heightens the chance for additional military conflict and additional loss of both military and civilian life. Now, I want to turn to Sergeant Vargas Andrews, and in your testimony, I want to give you an opportunity to address some of those things, because you asked us to give you the opportunity to elaborate on your ordeal post-blast. If you haven't had sufficient opportunity today to do that, I want to give you some more opportunity to elaborate on what you've been through since then.
I appreciate that, Congressman. For myself, at the time leading up to the blast, I was behind our gun in the tower. We had another individual, Sergeant Andrew Valencia, observing as well. We were continuing to scan the crowd for any threats, and about 17:30, Staff Sergeant Darren Hoover came and retrieved me from the tower to go gather an interpreter and his family member from the canal. The other half of our team was back staging gear in case we had to pull out quickly. And I walked out there to the canal with Staff Sergeant Hoover and talking about the situation. He was a combat veteran, and prior to that, and had explained how that was unlike anything that he had ever experienced in his time in Afghanistan prior. We walked out to that canal and pulled out an interpreter. He had a sign with what we had suggested putting on it to identify him. Pulled out his brother and did a search on them for weapons and any threat. Moved to take them to the main search area for processing, and he stated that he had family still in the canal. He had a wife and 4 kids back there, and so we stayed down in the canal that day. I told him, I assured him that he had proper documentation, he had passports for them, and I assured him that we would do everything we could to pull out his family, the remainder of them. And so that I would stay down there for 20 to 30 minutes, and then ensure another individual was helping him while we waited for his family to appear. I stayed down in that canal, facing the far side of the canal against the canal wall, and with Staff Sergeant Hoover, within 4 or 5 feet of me. About 10 minutes went by, and that's when the suicide bomber detonated. Post that, I opened my eyes. Finally, I knew right away what had happened, and started crawling due to the sound of gunfire from the neighborhood, and started crawling backwards. And over the course of a few minutes, could not. I was overwhelmed by my injuries, and but I was awake and aware. And the other half of our team had just come back. Charles Schilling and the rest of the guys had gone up to the tower to convene and make sure everyone was okay. He asked for bolt cutters that I carried on my pack, ran out there, disregarded his own life, got to me, and him screaming my name and getting to me and throwing tourniquets on me, as well as triaging me along with other Marines, saved my life. He cut open a hole in the fence at the base of that tower and cut down the casualty carrying distance probably by 120 yards at least, and to this day has not been recognized for that. So I wanted to publicly recognize him for that. him and the actions of my friends that day saved my life. And I'll leave it at that. Back to you.
I certainly appreciate that testimony. I know it's difficult for you. Mr. Hong, you were talking earlier about, I think you used the phrase, thank you for hope when hope becomes forlorn. As I recall, that comes from that speech, duty, honor, country. And I want to ask you, when you think of those three hallowed words, duty, honor, country, do you think that our withdrawal in Afghanistan met with those principles in that moment?
As I said earlier, I think that there's a lot that has happened that's shaken my faith in government. And there's a lot to be desired about the way our government executed that withdrawal. However, as I stated earlier, the way our Americans, my fellow Americans, stepped in and did what needed to be done when they saw our government falling short will forever inspire me.
Thank you for that. And I'll just add, I think duty is what we do, honor is how we do it, and country is why we do it. And in this instance, I do not believe we did our duty with the honor that you deserve, that the American people deserve, and the people of Afghanistan deserved. Thank you guys today.
You don't need